But yeah, Dan. I mean, we're gonna get into everything Atalanta, Calcio, related Serie A. But yeah, the 4-0, like Nick mentioned. Just again, your thoughts. It's been an interesting. We said it before you came on, Dan. It's been an interesting time for Atalanta as of late. This 4-0 shellacking of Sampdoria, who have been, pretty good under Gianpaolo 2.0. Just your thoughts on the game, expectations going in, and what did you make of the overall performance?
Yeah, I mean, I'm super pleased with it, of course, to get those 3 points. It was really, really important. I mean, February was a tough month for Atalanta. We're one of the 3 teams in Serie A that ended up playing 7 games in the shortest month of the year. We ended up with 3 wins, 3 losses, and a draw, and that draw was to Juve. Of course, we lost twice to Fiorentina, once in the Cup and once in Serie A. And then we had the 2 great wins, actually, in the Europa League against Olympiacos. And, with the big away win in the second leg in Greece, 3-0. I mean, Atalanta has had the worst luck this year with injuries and all sorts of things, with COVID, all of that. And to win 3-0 at home, at that, and we've been terrible at home this season, to, like you said, kind of a resurgent Sampdoria squad, and we have no strikers. And then we had 2 starting center backs suspended in Barachim City, and of course everybody's favorite on this pod, Merit Demiral. So I didn't go into it with such huge expectations. So I mean, my podcast partner Nick from Atalanta Passion was actually in Bergamo and at the match, and what he was telling me was that what we don't see on television is when they're dominant in that high press, it's so unbelievable. When you see it live in the stadium, and we were really, really good, but Sampdoria was also terrible. They were absolutely horrific, especially in that first half. 4-0. I said 3-0. We actually went 4-0. 2 goals for Tejan Koopmeiners on his birthday. Unfortunately, Ruslan Malinovsky didn't play because he got injured in warm-ups. Of course, it would have been fantastic with everything that's going on in his homeland for him to get a couple of goals. He did get the brace in Olympiacos, which was really, really good. And then, our center forward is Mario Pasalic, and he got the first goal. And we also had a goal. Who's the other goal from?
Miranchuk, no?
That's right. Miranchuk comes back from injury.
Twinkle toes in the box there.
Absolutely.
Miranchuk.
That beautiful 4th goal from Alexei Miranchuk. And the good news was that for us, Luis Muriel was actually on the bench for this. So, hopefully he's going to come back soon. It's just, with Duvan Zapata out for the rest of the year. The striking options are very thin because Roberto Piccoli went on loan to Genoa in the winter transfer window, and we didn't replace him. Of course, we have Jeremy Boga now and Valentin Mihaila, 2 good pickups in the January transfer window. I think that we're a team that's on the up again. It's good to see us scoring goals, and even better to see us back-to-back shutouts.
I was about to ask, actually, because you brought it up early on in response to the last question, how let's just say the past month, not just February, but also the past 31 days have been pretty tough for Atalanta, especially there was a good stretch where there was no wins, there was it was just draws and losses. Did you feel at some point maybe I know people have their qualms with Gasperini, but I think he's got a great system and he's a great manager. Do you think maybe it's the wagons are starting to fall off the wheel a bit in Gasperini's system? Do you think maybe there was a bit of a panic button to press, or do you think that it was just, it's not really this is not really what it looks like? It's just a small little bad stretch. What were your thoughts during that time?
Yeah, I think maybe us Atalantini are a little bit biased, but it's going to take a lot for us to start blaming Gianpiero Gasperini, for anything. And it's pretty clear, I think, objectively, let alone subjectively, when we had those 2 matches in January against Inter, which was a 0-0 draw, missing 5 starters due to COVID. The next game, 8 starters out due to COVID and injuries, 0-0 draw against Lazio. We ended up losing a terrible match to Cagliari on a dubious penalty and red card to Juan Musso. But we've seen what Cagliari has been able to do lately. So I think it's a combination of bad luck when it comes to injuries with COVID, and then there's just a lot. Like, who was out? We were out our strikers. Like, you have to change the way that you play. With Duvan Zapata, we have no reference. Luis Muriel is not a starting striker. We know him as the great super sub who comes on and changes everything. And then you have the injection of a guy like Boga, and that's going to take some time before he acclimates. And he's already shown some great progress. I feel like he's well ahead of where I feel like he should be in fitting in. So it takes time. As good as Gasperini is, as well drilled as the squad is, any of these types of changes are going to take some time. And I think the fact that we performed well in Europe is really, really good. That people are coming back from injury, like Moranchuk, like Muriel, like Palomino was back for the last game. It's just one of those things that it came at a terrible time, because now we're 10 points off of the top, like we were at the end of the winter break. But nobody thought that Inter was going to drop these types of points. I thought they were a shoe, and I thought they were just going to run over everybody. But they're not called Pazza Inter because it only happened once or twice. That this has happened. But I think that we knew that Juve, Nick, your boys were going to be good again. We could see that coming. They always do something at the end. Great transfers with Zakaria and Vlahovic. So it just sucks that we're kind of out of it because of what happened in January and February. But I still think we've got a fighting chance to make those Champions League positions. And hey, if that doesn't work out for us, we'll just win the Europa League anyway. So who cares?
We'll talk about we'll save it till later, but because I do have another question and it kind of relates to Serie A. So looking at Atalanta's results this season, they lost to Fiorentina in September. They lost to Fiorentina in January in the Coppa Italia, and then they lost to Fiorentina again in January in the Serie A. And so you were talking about the press, and that's one thing that Atalanta does well and that they become known for in these past couple of years. But we see kind of Vincenzo Italiano kind of with the same style. We saw that especially today. They were pressing hard. They had, I think, 65% possession against Juve. One could say that Italiano has that similar mentality of just attack and press. And so we see that Fiorentina beat Atalanta 3 times this year. Do you think, from a tactical point of view, that this is one area where Gasperini needs to kind of be aware of, like when other teams press like he does, that Atalanta needs to adjust? Or do you think it was just like 3 games where it's just, Fiorentina just got a bit lucky, they got better in those 3 games, and you're not too worried about it?
Well, I think it's a combination of a lot of things, Nick, because I'm not going to take anything away from Italiano and this Fiorentina team, because I'm so glad we don't have to play them anymore for the rest of the season, right? That first match in Serie A, that was 2 penalties, and you have to earn those penalties. They weren't, I don't remember them being like, but it wasn't from the run of play. It wasn't necessarily from the press too much. The last loss in Serie A, I think that Italiano really, really had Gasperini's number. But again, we were pretty much essentially playing without a striker. So that was part of the adjustment period. That being said, the very first match of the Serie A season against Torino, with Gasperini's protege Ivan Juric, obviously pressing the same way with his Torino squad that Atalanta does under Gasperini. We were lucky to come away with a victory in that match in the last minute of the game, essentially the last kick. So, yeah, I think that Atalanta isn't. A lot of people have said Atalanta's starting to get found out. That's why they're not doing as well. I don't know. I still feel like we're doing pretty darn good. Being where we are. We didn't have the injury problems in the last 4 seasons that we've had this season, and then you put COVID on top of that. But I think Atalanta's game is always constantly evolving, whether that's in very small ways. But I think there's a little bit more solidity defensively. But it's all about who Gasperini picks to be in that midfield. I think now Teun Koopmeiners has to be a starter right off the bat, and you now see us play with 3 central midfielders in Freuler and De Roon all the time, and Teun Koopmeiners playing in a more free role. And that brings a lot more solidity, the ability to break the press. And in some of those Fiorentina matches, we didn't have that trifecta that was playing. So I think in order for us to be successful against teams that essentially give us a taste of our own medicine, we got to have those three guys on the pitch.
That's a great point, and I said before, I know it's easy to say this week because you got the 2 goals and whatnot, but Koopmeiners I think has been, and we said it before, just a great addition. It's one of those Atalanta players. It's one of these players that you don't really know too much about him, but he does his job well. He can get up there. Obviously, he can score a goal. I feel like it's again like one of those guys that can fit into the system, do his job. It's like a Pezzotta too. He's been around the block a bit as of late. Chelsea, Milan, now Atalanta, and he's fitting great. Another player that you kind of mentioned before, we got some questions related to Atalanta in terms of the season, in terms of Europa League. We'll get into that a bit later, but you mentioned the guy that they just brought in, obviously Jeremy Boga. He was sought out by so many clubs. It seems he's been one of Serie A's like under the radar bright spots. I feel playing for a Sassuolo team. He's been tricky as a winger. Wearing the number 10 after Papu leaves. I mean, that's a big number to wear these days, I guess, in Bergamo. But you mentioned your quick thoughts about him, but is he a player that can really take Atalanta to another level, or is he just another role player in the system type of player? And do you see his future with Atalanta for a long time?
When we made the transfer, because that's a really good question. Jeremy Boga, we've seen flashes of brilliance from him at Sassuolo. We all know the capability. I kind of compare it to a certain extent, Jeremy Boga to Josip Ilicic. We didn't talk about losing Josip Ilicic again. Hopefully he's able to recover and come back. But, we saw Josip Ilicic at Palermo, at Fiorentina. We knew that Josip Ilicic could do crazy Josip Ilicic things. And it wasn't until he came to Atalanta and played under Gasperini that we really saw some consistency with Josip Ilicic's play. And I think that you can say that you can kind of bring something similar to Jeremy Boga because, I didn't think that he was going to be a starter in the beginning. I imagined him as an impact sub. I imagined this whole scenario where, Duvan Zapata and Teun Koopmeiners and Martin de Roon and all those guys are beating up on center backs, and midfielders for 70 minutes. And you take them off and boom, in comes Luis Muriel and Jeremy Boga to take on the tired legs. I mean, how scary would that? How scary is that?
Dan. That's scary, Dan.
But unfortunately, he's had to be like titulare, in quite a few matches now because of our injury crisis. And I think in the next couple of years, you're going to see him as a number 1 verified starter for us, with the ability to be an impact sub as well. Within Gasperini's system, the attackers are not, this side of Duvan Zapata are not, they don't have to start every game. There's a lot of flexibility in attack with this Atalanta team. So I just, seeing what he's doing and how he's passing and how he's unlocking defenses, you can tell he's not quite there. He's not super comfortable yet. But his connection with Teun Koopmeiners is actually something to behold. How quickly those two have really started connecting in a good way is something that is way above my expectations. So I think the Koopmeiners Boga connection is something that we'll see brilliantly in the next couple of years at Atalanta.